Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Immuron Limited. It trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol IMRN and is a biopharmaceutical company focused on developing and commercializing orally delivered targeted polyclonal antibodies for the treatment of infectious diseases. Happy to welcome back its CEO, Steve Lydeamore. Welcome to the conference, Steve. How are you today?
Very good, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, the floor is yours, and call me back when you're ready for questions.
Very good. Thank you very much. And good morning, everybody. My pleasure again to speak at the Emerging Growth Conference. As stated, we're a biopharmaceutical company focusing on infectious diseases. And you can see on the screen here a picture of one of those nasty bugs that we're going after. So I'll just quickly skip through the safe harbor statement. There are some unaudited figures for the current financial year, which runs from 1st of July 2024 through to 30th of June 2025. I thought what might be useful for those that have seen my presentation before is to compare the status of where the company is back in October, 30th of October 2024, the last time I presented up until the current date. And if we go through that, on the commercial side, so we sell Travelan in Australia, in the US, and in Canada. It's a product that's indicated in Australia and Canada for the prevention and relief of travelers' diarrhea. It's also sold in the US market as a dietary supplement without label claims. And back on the 30th of October, it was quite exciting. At that time, we had quarterly revenue of $1.5 million and had North American revenue of $500,000. And that North American was just starting to pick up, and that was up 48%. You can see the current status, so December 2024, so we've got quarterly and half-year results there. So for the quarter, compared to back last time I presented where we did $1.5 million for the quarter, we've just completed a quarter with $2.5 million. So that's up 70% on the prior quarter and 249% on the prior comparative period, or PCP. And in North America, that's 0.7 million, up 43% on the prior quarter. And when we look at the half year, we've got some record numbers here for the company. So we've achieved $4 million for the December half year, up 70% on the prior comparative period. And in North America, a record of 1.1 million, up 130%. So as you can see, the commercial operations of the company and selling our product Travelan for prevention and relief of travelers' diarrhea is going very, very well. Now, Travelan, the active ingredient is IMM124E, and last time I presented, had recently presented phase 2 top-line results, and we've progressed that to the point now where we've submitted the full clinical study report to the FDA, and I'll go through next steps a little bit later, but essentially we're moving towards FDA approval for phase 3 studies. Now, Travelan, the US dietary supplement, is being trialled in a very large study by the Uniform Health Services University in 866 patients. And these are active US and UK military personnel travelling on deployment to high-risk regions. And last time I presented, we were at 85% recruitment, and I'm pleased to report that we've reached 100% recruitment. And so of those 866 patients, there are 20 patients that have been recruited that are awaiting deployment before dosing. And we're anticipating that in July 2025 of this year, so a near-term milestone coming up, that we'll get top-line results. So we're looking forward to that. We received positive feedback from the FDA for IMM529. So this is a therapeutic the company's developing for Clostridioides difficile infection. So we filed pre-IND, got positive feedback, and one of the feedback from the FDA was on a proposed protocol where we would treat patients in conjunction with standard of care. And that would mean that compared to previous sales estimates, that would be used earlier. And so I asked Lumanity to update their peak sales forecast for the US market. And previously it was under US 100 million per annum at peak in the US market, and they've increased that to 400 million. So that's a very positive outcome for the company. Current stage of that project is we're planning a FDA IND, so that investigation new drug submission, in the first half of this calendar year, so probably around June. And we're looking to get FDA approval for that IND approval to move ahead with phase 2 in the second half of this calendar year. And something new, we've announced a new project, IMM 986, which is preclinical research being conducted locally in Australia by Monash University, targeting vancomycin-resistant enterococci, or VRE for short. Now, this is a quite a serious antimicrobial resistance issue bug that doesn't have adequate treatments, and we hope to be able to develop something that is promising for that. And the results of that preclinical research are anticipated in July 2025, so another near-term milestone coming up. Just showing graphical form, I like this graph. It's showing here in the green is Australia, blue for the US, and red for Canada, the quarterly growth in sales. And what's pleasing about it is not only that sales are growing, as I've already reporting, but the slope of the graph and also the increasing contributions of US and Canada. So we've got some record sales here, big percentage increases based on prior quarter and prior comparative period, and an increasing slope of growth trajectory. And this is where it's coming from. So you can see here in Australia and in the US and in Canada, where we're currently distributing. So in Australia and Canada, where we have on product label claims for prevention and relief of travellers' diarrhoea, we sell the product in the retail setting. So in Australia, that's retail pharmacy. You can see here that we cover all of the large pharmacy banner groups. And in Canada, we've more recently launched there, so we're not as well established, but we have established presence in all of the large pharmacy banner groups, as well as some of the larger supermarket chains. So Shoppers Drug Mart is the largest pharmaceutical pharmacy chain in Canada, and Loblaws, you can see, is one of the largest grocery chains selling pharmaceutical products in Canada. And in the US market, we're not into the pharmacy chain yet, although it's on our things to do list, but we're establishing a strong brand name through, initially we did that through Passport Health, that's US's largest travel clinic, but now we're also on Amazon.com and Walmart.com. And in fact, Amazon.com is the largest sales contributor in the US market now for Travelan. And just, I won't labour on this, but this is some of the tactics that we're using to get the word out, and that is to promote awareness, consideration, engagement. And in Canada and Australia, we do a lot of that within the major retailers through in-store positioning and promotion and catalogues and the like, and a lot of training of pharmacists and pharmacy assistants. But to back that up, and also as the primary aim for achieving that awareness, consideration, engagement, we use social media and search marketing, and more recently using influencer program activity, both by healthcare practitioners as well as users. Here's an updated pipeline chart. We have a strong pipeline with near-term milestones, and I've mentioned some of these already. So we've got the for Travelan, we've got that Uniformed Services University study with top-line data due, it says here, second half 2025, but we're expecting that in July, so very close. IMM 124E, the Travelan, we have submitted that clinical study report for the phase 2 to the FDA, and the upcoming milestones, also near term, are the end of phase 2 FDA meeting and to initiate phase 3 clinical study in the second half of this calendar year following FDA approval of the protocol. For C. diff, or Clostridioides difficile infection, IMM 529, this is a Monash University collaboration. As I mentioned, we had positive feedback on the pre-IND filing. Upcoming near-term milestones are to file that IND submission with the FDA and to get it approved so we can initiate phase 2 in the second half of this calendar year. And that new program I mentioned, vancomycin-resistant enterococci, IMM 986 here. We have initiated preclinical activities, and we're aiming to complete those before the end of this calendar year. Now, on IMM 529 for CDI or C. diff, we have a triple mechanism of action here, which is quite novel. So this is not an antibiotic, so we don't have any of those issues with antimicrobial and resistance. Some of you will recall from previous presentations that C. diff is both treated with and caused by antibiotic use. And our novel triple mechanism of action focuses not only on toxin B, but also spores and vegetative cells. And you can see highlighted in blue here the efficacy results from the preclinical animal studies that we undertook. And so we have 1, 2, 3, prevention of primary disease, protection of disease recurrence, and treatment of primary disease, all with statistical significance. So it bodes well as we move into the clinic in human studies. And just touching on, I mentioned that IMM 529, the forecast for peak sales revenue US has been increased up to US $400 million based on the change in the treatment paradigm that it would be used. And just for information, we have a similar forecast prepared for Travalan as a prescription-approved product, which is the aim of the current clinical program of just in excess of US $100 million per annum peak revenue in the US market alone. So in the case of each of these products, of course, it would be sold in other countries for additional sales revenue opportunities. And that new project, IMM 986 targeting VRE. Here's some background information. You can see it's a big issue. Cost of treating this infection annually exceeds 4.6 billion, and it's a big problem. And we think we have a solution to doing that. And so it's a similar type of development with Monash University as they did for C. diff here with VRE. So they're assisting with developing vaccines. And for those of you that recall, our technology platform is to inject cows with targeted vaccines for targeted pathogens and to collect colostrum from those cows that contains polyclonal antibodies specific to those targeted pathogens. And it's quite a novel way and effective way of being able to, in humans, treat them and both prevent and treat without having to be vaccinated directly. Just counting the upcoming milestones here, you can see a strong path of achievement in each of these programs. That's the Travalan phase 2 and the Uniformed Services University trial. We're marching towards a end of phase 2 meeting with the FDA for Travalan, anticipating approval of the FDA clinical protocol to move into phase 3 in the second half of this calendar year. And as I just mentioned before, we've completed recruitment now for the Uniformed Services University study, that 866 patients. We're waiting on deployment of the final 20 so that it can be dosed, and top-line results anticipated in July 2025. And hopefully I've left enough time for some questions from viewers.
Yes, can you hear me? My video is not working, but can you hear me, Steve?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, we do have some questions. All right, let's jump in. We have a question about Travalan. So what competition is out there and where are you selling it exactly? If you can be more specific, is it online, in drugstores?
Yeah, so Travelan is an opportunity for us to convert what's in excess of $1 billion market in travelers diarrhea. The competitors are products that people use to treat travelers diarrhea after you get it. So there are brand names like Imodium, which is a generic name loperamide. The leading brand of that in Australia is GastroStop. People also use oral rehydration salts. So the leading brand of that in Australia is Hydrolite, and in the US it's probably something like Liquid IV or something like that. So there are products that aren't direct competitors, but they are what people use for travelers diarrhea at the moment. What we need to do is to make people aware that there is an opportunity to avoid getting travelers diarrhea in the first place, because our product is a preventative. So this is something that you take before and while you're on your trip to the Caribbean or to Mexico, or in Australia that would be down to Bali or somewhere like that. It prevents you from getting it, and there's no need to have Imodium or Hydrolite because you don't get it in the first place. So that's our challenge, and that's the competition we're up against. So in the Australian and Canadian markets, we sell in retail pharmacy primarily. In Canada, we also sell in grocery, and in all markets we sell online. And in fact, in the US, the largest sales channel for the product in the US market is Amazon.com. We also sell on Walmart.com, and it is available through travel clinics, the largest one of which is Passport Health.
Fantastic. And so you did say you are doing trials on Travelan. Is that complete, or what's your status with that?
Yes, we've done numerous studies on Travelan over the years. So it's been trialled in disease indications beyond just travelers diarrhea. So in the references that I have at the end here, you can read for yourself some of these. But we've done extensive work with the US Department of Defense, AFRIMS, which is their research facility in Thailand. We've worked with the Army, Walter Army Research Institute. We've worked with the Navy, the Naval Medical Research Command. We've done a study ourselves in Poland showing up to 90% preventative for travelers diarrhea. And we've repeated that study with US Department of Defense money recently. That is that phase 2 study that I mentioned, showing that we can prevent mostly serious diarrhea by giving once a day. The original studies were 3 times a day. And we have ongoing studies with the Uniformed Services University, which is a twice daily dosing in a real world setting. These are the US and UK military personnel traveling to these regions with a high risk for getting travelers diarrhea. Lots and lots of clinical studies supporting Travelan for prevention of travelers diarrhea. And for viewers that aren't familiar, there is no drug approved by the FDA for prevention of travelers diarrhea. So we hope to be the first. And even before FDA approval, this Uniformed Services University study is very important in that it's a phase 3 like study, and it may be sufficient for us to get into guidelines for prevention of travelers diarrhea. So guidelines that doctors use when considering what to advise their patients are things like the CDC Yellow Book and the International Society for Travel Medicine. At the moment, if you read them, essentially says, be careful what water you drink, what food you eat, be good with hygiene, washing your hands, and those types of things. The CDC Yellow Book does mention our product, the bovine colostrum that's referenced in there is our product, but it mentions that they're looking for additional clinical data, and that's from a field study in a real world setting for all types of pathogens that can cause travelers diarrhea. And that's what the Uniformed Services University study can deliver for us.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. We have a few questions about IMM 529 and IMM 986. Can you just give us a timeline of where you are with both of those?
Yes, I can certainly do that. So IMM 529 for Clostridioides difficile infection. We've filed pre-IND, got positive feedback from the FDA. We're looking to file an IND, so investigational new drug application, around June of this year, and get FDA approval for that, following which we would start a phase 2. And that phase 2 would be in 60 patients and would run for probably 2 years or so. And if that's successful, then we'll be looking to move into phase 3, and phase 3 could take another couple of years after that. So each of these are long development programs, but that's the status of that one. The new program for VRE, IMM986, is early days. We've just started preclinical research. This is proof of concept. At the moment, we're developing novel vaccines. We have given these to our research cows and produced a product, and we're in the process of doing the lab work to see whether it works. And we're expecting results from that in July. And depending on the outcome of that, we'll be able to update viewers in the future as to what the next steps are with that program.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. CAMP ETEC uses IMC's manufacturing process. So should the product be commercialized, and how would IMC derive commercial value?
Yeah, so CAMP ETEC was a collaboration with the Navy. They developed a novel vaccine for. I'll just explain what CAMP ETEC is. So CAMP ETEC is Campylobacter, which is one pathogen. ETEC is enterotoxigenic E. coli. They developed a conjugated vaccine for both pathogens, and we use that in developing a novel hyperimmune bovine colostrum product. And we trialled that in a challenge study, or they did, in a challenge study to see whether it could prevent CAMP ETEC. And they discovered that it was not as effective as they needed it to be to move to the next step. So they've gone back to the drawing board and are currently developing, with a US DoD grant, some US $2.4 million to develop a new vaccine for Campylobacter, probably not conjugated with ETEC. That once they've got that, we'll develop a new hyperimmune bovine colostrum product for them and do that trial again.
Perfect. And where geographically are you conducting these trials?
It's mostly in the US market for clinical studies. So the phase 2 study for Travelan was conducted in Baltimore, Maryland, at a CRO called IMRN. The USU is conducting the study also. They're based in Baltimore, Maryland as well. The IMM529, we haven't selected a contract research organisation yet. We'd likely do as much of that as we could in Australia, probably, because there's an advantage in Australia in that we can get an R&D tax incentive of up to 43.5% back. So it's quite cost effective. And the preclinical research for the VRE program is being done by Monash University in Melbourne, Australia.
Perfect. And can you discuss the burn versus income ratio? How are you handling the deficit in the fiscal environment?
Yeah, so next week we'll release our half-yearly results to the market, and that'll show those figures. But our last capital raise was back in July 2020, and that's been sufficient to cover the cash burn that we have since that time. We're not looking to go to the market at this time. We have sufficient cash reserves to continue our current activities, but our current burn rate really is lumpy. It depends on mostly on timing of R&D expenditure, but in a typical month, we're burning around $200,000 a month. One of the positive things with growing those sales that I showed before is that you'll see in the half-year results the contribution of the commercial operations towards funding our R&D has increased quite a bit on what it was the prior year, and we expect that to continue.
Wonderful. And yes, as our viewer says, you seem to have come a long way in a short time. So can you talk a little bit more about your team, and have they had any successful exits of any products?
Yeah, very small team. So where possible, we like to keep in-house those people that are core, and outsource all the other activities. So we have a small team of 7 people. Yeah, I'm the CEO. We have 2 people in sales and marketing, 2 people in R&D, and 2 people in QA. And successful exits. We've got our Chief Commercial Officer looked after the brand Panadol. So it's a GlaxoSmithKline brand outside of the US market. It's the leading acetaminophen brand. I think in the US, an equivalent brand like Tylenol. Good, strong experience. And prior to that, he had experience with Gillette and Procter & Gamble in the UK. And our Chief Scientific Officer, before joining Immuron, was with CSL, which is Australia's 3rd largest listed company that's also doing very well in the US market with flu vaccines and blood products and the like. So a lot of experience in the team. Glad to have them on board, focusing on small biotech work, but they're quite passionate about it. This is a high unmet need. So with antimicrobial resistance, and there's a need for small companies like us to develop novel preventatives and treatments for these pathogens, which continue to be a problem.
Absolutely. Well, with that, do you have any closing remarks for our viewers today, Steve?
No, look, it's been a pleasure to speak to you again. I'll just go back. My direct contact information is here. So it's my email address and my phone number. I do welcome people with any follow-up questions that you do have. As I outlined, we've got, for a small company, having a commercial product on the market, generating revenue and contributing to funding that R&D is quite novel, and it's growing very well, and we can expect that to continue. And a strong pipeline. So we've got multiple therapeutics in advanced clinical stages, as well as some other new stuff coming through. And near-term milestones. We've got milestones coming up in June, July, which should excite the market. So keep an eye out for that, and I hope you can join us. Please take a look at Immuron.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great speaking with you, and we look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Very good. Thanks again.
All right, everyone. We'll be right back.